Hey guys, it's Flip, and this is my Cub Cadet XT1 Enduro Series LT46, and today I'm going to show you how to lubricate the front wheels and where some of the pivot points are. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so the first thing I like to do is jack up each side of the mower as I'm doing this. That allows me to just take the weight off of that front wheel, and then I can turn it easier to get into that zerk. And I can also spin the tire as I'm doing this to help get some grease all around that axle. So what you need for this job is some number 2 all-purpose grease, a grease gun, some type of paper towels or rags, and some gloves come in handy. Now I'm also using a coupler on the end of the grease gun made by Circ. I recommend using a coupler like this just because it makes it so much easier to attach your grease gun to the zerks. You just pull back on this trigger like this, and there are 3 jaws in here that'll open up and grab onto the zerk, and this will allow you to do it one-handed and it won't leak. The factory ends on most grease guns are just kind of a pain in the butt to attach to the zerks, so a coupler like this just makes it a lot easier, especially if you have a lot of greasing to do. And I'll put a link under the video in the description to this coupler in case you want to check it out. So each front wheel has 2 grease zerks on it, so I'm just going to turn the steering wheel here so I can show you where they're at. And again, that's why I like to jack it up to make this a little easier. So the first zerk is on the inside of the wheel right here on this plastic bushing, and if you turn the wheel you can get to the other side where there is a grease zerk right here on the spindle to help lubricate the steering. So I'm going to turn the wheel back and we'll start with this grease zerk on the bushing. So I'll go ahead and zoom in here to give you a better look at this. This is actually kind of easier to get to than some mowers that I have worked on. But the first thing you always want to do is wipe off this nipple good and clean before you start. You never want to just attach your grease gun and start pumping in grease when it's dirty, or you can force some dirt and grit down into this fitting, and you never want to do that. So then you can go ahead and attach your grease gun. Again, if you have a coupler, it makes this a little easier. And then what I like to do is give it a couple pumps, and then I will disconnect it and just give this wheel a few spins to help that grease work in around the axle. And then I will reconnect it and give it a few more pumps until I can see some grease oozing out. Then disconnect it again. And right here you see that grease coming out, so we know this is full. So I'll just go ahead and give the tire a few more spins and then wipe off that extra grease so it doesn't attract dirt. Then I'm going to turn this wheel back to the right so I can get into that zerk on the spindle, and I'll go ahead and zoom in on that for you. And again, the first thing you want to do is just wipe that off really good so you don't get any dirt down into that fitting. Then go ahead and attach your grease gun again and give it a few pumps until you see it coming out. And then what some people do is leave it actually a little glob of grease on that fitting, and that'll kind of rust proof it and waterproof it. But just make sure you wipe it off before you put grease in it the next time. But I typically just wipe it off, but some people will leave a little glob of grease on that fitting like it is here. It's just a matter of preference. And right here you can see the grease coming out around the bottom of the spindle as well. Then I switch the jack over to the other side of the frame to take the weight off the other front wheel. And then go ahead and hit the 2 zerks on that wheel. Again, just make sure to wipe off each one so you don't force any dirt in there. Hit the one on the axle and then the one on the spindle. Then you can lower your jack to the ground. So now I'm going to show you a few of the pivot points. So to do this, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put the deck all the way down to the ground so we've got a little room to see up in here. A couple little safety tips: just always make sure your PTO is off and your parking brakes engaged before you mess with your deck. So this is one of those things I've seen people have different opinions on, but here's your first pivot point right here on this idler arm. This is a good spot to oil from time to time. I don't do it a whole lot, but when I do, I use a light oil like WD-40. I want to be able to blow this off with a blower and not have dirt stuck in grease. If you choose to do that, just don't get any oil on your pulleys or your belts. Again, I don't recommend grease just because that's going to get dirt stuck in and around these parts. but I have seen where some people will use a dry lube or something like that. So if you've got something that works well, feel free to drop it in the comments below. Now if you do choose to oil this pivot point, I would suggest doing it when you have the deck off, preferably when you're changing this belt, so you don't get oil on your belt and pulleys. If you don't know how to take the deck off, I have a video on that, and I will put it in the corner of the screen right now. And here's a couple more spots. Right here is the forward and reverse drive pedal, and where it goes in right here is a spot that you can hit with some light oil. Again, if you choose to do that, just make sure you do not get any on the pulley or the belt underneath. And here you've got the same thing on the other side. Right here you've got the brake pedal, and it goes into a bushing right here. You can hit that with some light oil as well, and once again, just don't get that on the pulleys or belt underneath. You've also got spots on the lift linkage you can hit, like right here and right here, and then the same thing on the other side. And then you've got some pivot points and lift linkage behind the rear tire right here below the deck lift lever. You can put some light oil in right here. This is what raises and lowers the deck, just like this. And then finally you've got a linkage point right here in the front. And that's it. That's how you lube the front wheels and where the pivot points are on a Cub Cadet XT1 LT46. If I missed anything, or if you've got something that's worked well for you in the past, please feel free to drop it in the comments below. If you found this video useful, please hit the like button for me and subscribe to my channel. I've got a lot more videos on this mower to come. Thanks for watching.